Awesome, awesome. Jesper, thank you so much. Two notes of thanks. One is for you joining us for this Connect Talks episode, and second, to Kaptina for being our partner and helping Connect do what we do. So big thanks to you on two notes.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Let's start our discussion, and I thought we could talk about you initially so that our audience will be later listening to this talk over YouTube as well. Tell us about yourself and what got you interested in the amazing world of investing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I started out as a bachelor in economics or
Hmm.
finance and economics, and from University of Lund. And
Hmm.
I spent the first 20 years of my career, I spent writing and analyzing mutual funds in different
Okay.
newspapers. I spent 8 years at Avanza before starting Kaptena. And in the time when we in Sweden launched, or the government launched, the ISK, investeringssparkonto,
Hmm.
uh, at that time, in 2012, I think it was, we had some great companies, unlisted private companies.
Hmm.
Uh, so there was a little bit buzz around unlisted companies, private equity, small ones. Not like we are not involved in the big EQT private equity
Hmm.
investments. That's not our business. Those we are more to startups, scale ups, uh, companies that are on the journey towards becoming listed in perhaps 3-4 years. That's
Hmm.
our scope at Kaptena. So when I say private equity, I mean smaller companies growing, scaling, not the big ones that, for example, equity buys or invests in. But at the time, at 2012,
Hmm.
uh, we at Avanza, we when the ES call was launched,
Hmm.
I learned. I asked myself once, how come it's very clear that you can't have unlisted securities or unlisted shares in an ESK konto.
Okay. Okay.
So I investigated if why we could before the ESK we had this kapitalförsäkring in Sweden
Mm.
that was very popular, and the
Hmm.
ESK is very similar to a kapitalförsäkring. And I was looking into why can't you have, how come you can't have unlisted securities or shares in the kapitalförsäkring? And
Okay.
I contacted Finansinspektionen because I read the försäkringsrörelselag, the
Hmm.
insurance legislation, and
Hmm.
I couldn't see anywhere that you could not have unlisted shares in a kapitalförsäkring. And then
Okay.
I contacted Finansinspektionen and I asked, is it possible? Is it not possible? And
Hmm.
because I thought it would be possible to have it. And
Okay.
the Finansinspektionen told me that I was right. Or every Swedish insurance company could allow their customers to invest or have private equity, unlisted shares in a kapitalförsäkring if they allowed it. At that
Okay.
time, I thought, okay, this must be a very uncharted territory, and a lot of
Hmm. Hmm.
people would like to invest in private equity and have the same tax efficiency as they have in the ESK for listed securities.
Okay.
That's where it all started. Then when I understood that it's okay to have unlisted shares in a
Hmm.
kapitalförsäkring, I had to find a partner in a insurance company that would allow that. So I made
Mm.
a lot of groundwork, uh, and when I was done with that, I contacted. At that time, the name was Danica Pension, It's now Kapcure. And told them what I wanted to do with Kaptena and how I would do it. And after a bunch of meetings with them, they say, okay, if you do as you say that you will do at Kaptena, we will open up our terms for our kapitalförsäkring so that the customers can have the unlisted shares in our kapitalförsäkring. And that's how it started. And one main reason was also not just because the tax efficient ownership it's also that I think, or I thought, or I still think that it is the private equity companies, the unlisted companies that need the capital, because when people invest, they would like to have it in an ISK, and the ISK couldn't support their needs, and it's more of a what do you call that? Likvärdighet, rättvisa, justice in for those who invest in private equity or in listed equity. And I could with Kapten I could support their needs for that. And so that was two major things. Or the same possibilities for either if you invest in private equity or listed equity, and that it's the private equity, the small companies, they really need the venture capital to grow. Instead, they need it more than the listed companies. So that's the ground. And from the beginning, we started out in 2014-15, and in the beginning, the biggest challenge for me was to convince people that it is okay to have private unlisted securities in a kapitalförsäkring. We call it ISK för onoterat, or Kapsure. That's what the biggest challenge to get. Believe me that when I said that it's okay with the IRS, we have it's not illegal if we do it correct. You can say that there are two main things that you have to consider owning unlisted shares in the kapitalförsäkring. First, you cannot own shares that you are kvalificerad andelsägare i, and that means that I don't know these English words because they're Swedish.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
If you have to pay taxes as a fåmansbolagsägare, those equity shares you cannot own in a kapitalförsäkring. And then everything has to be according to the market value. So what Kaptena also does, and that's one reason for us for being so successful, I think we put a lot of power or energy on the valuation process, because when you go through from regular ownership to the kapitalförsäkring, you don't pay, the upside is that you don't pay capital gains tax. Instead, you pay this annual avkastningsskatt. And that avkastningsskatt has to be based on the market value. So we market value, or in the legislation it says fair value. We market value all our customers' shares continually, at least every quarter. And we do that. We have a big team doing that. And we have people say that the IRS will come down on you. But we have, through the years, probably supported IRS with between 1,000 and 1,500 reports on why we have valuated a certain stock, a certain share, at a certain valuation at a certain time. And so far we have not been, they haven't come down on us any time yet. So we do
Okay.
this, we take it super seriously that it has to be market value. Otherwise, it won't, they would come down on us and the customer at the end. So that is super important. That's what we have been doing for soon 10 years, this kapitalförsäkrings solution.
Well, this is amazing. Like, wow, it's been so intense learning all the steps that you have taken over the years, I think. And I think the researcher in you, the 20 years you spent, I think when you are building startups or companies, when they are launching out, one of the biggest struggles for launching a company is to find a very well-defined niche or a business area to operate in. And I think the way you research the market in mutual funds, so that background help you identify a very interesting niche which was not served because companies needed capital and investors and public could not provide them because the system didn't exist. So you have kind of created a system which is now running and making it possible for these companies to raise capital and for these investors to go in and support the companies in their journey. So really inspiring, all of
Yeah,
this.
that's I think you're very right. We only do a few things, and
Hmm.
what we do very well. We are a försäkringsförmedlare, which is
Okay.
an insurance distributor, I think in English.
Hmm.
But we don't do anything else but helping our customers with their unlisted shares or other
Okay.
unlisted investments that you
Hmm.
also can own in a kapitalförsäkring, of course. They have shares, they have bonds, they have convertibles, they have
Hmm.
stock options, all the different unlisted securities you can have
Okay.
in the kapitalförsäkring. But we do only do one thing. We don't do any pension plans or nothing, because
Okay. Okay.
a bunch of other companies or do that. We do our thing, and we do what we do very well and fast, efficient.
Question. So you seem to have a two-sided market. On one side, you have investors wanting to invest in these companies, and on the other side, you have companies, okay, which you vet, and then you are quarterly updating their valuation status. So let's pick one of them first. Let's talk about the companies. What kind of companies do you focus on, and how do you source these companies to be part of Captina?
That's a good question. That's a good, because that's what we have done now. We have broadened our services or products
Hmm.
during the last 3 years. Because as you say, Naimul, from the beginning, we only had a business relationship with the shareholders, the
Okay.
investors. The company we
Mm.
had an information relationship.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That's what we started with. Then we built this Kapclear. That's
Mm-hmm.
the digital share register,
Mm-hmm.
aktiebok. We call it investerarbok, which is a
Okay.
broader spectrum of an share aktiebok, where
Okay.
the company can administrate and follow the owners of all shares or other investments they have, all the products they have emitted, given out to investors. Could be stocks, of course, could be
Mm-hmm.
convertibles, could be bonds, other loans. Uh, and we connect them in Kapclear, which we see as uh, for those who know how the Swedish infrastructure works for
Mm-hmm.
listed securities, we have something called Euroclear. They are the main share ledger register share book of all the listed companies. Kapclear
Okay.
is the same thing, but for unlisted securities, unlisted companies. So we connect, and now with Kapclear, we also have a other sort of relation with the companies.
Mm.
And to connect the companies needing money with the investors. They wanted to invest in these companies through Kaptena. We have started this Kapnet, which is a Kaptena investment network, similar to Connect's network, but it's all, for us, it's all done in the same ecosystem because we have full control. That makes it much more efficient to administrate, because everything goes faster. It's more secure that we know what's happening. We secure that, do we own these shares that you want to sell, or if you do a round, we help the companies with the round, with the administration around the round, so it becomes more efficient and more cost efficient for everybody.
Okay.
That's what we connect everybody in this ecosystem.
So Kapnet is where you connect the two sides. Kapclear is more like an advanced actuary book, or as you say, an investor's book.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And Kapnet, in that sense, is more like a digital platform.
It's a digital. In Sweden, we have this. What do you call that? We have spridningsregler. I don't know the English term.
Yeah.
Because a private company can't go out and market a round. It has to be in a closed circle, and this Kapnet makes a closed circuit for investors. So that's when I started Kaptena, we met a lot of different legislations, rules that we have to apply to and do things, so that the IRS or the other government would come and say that you are doing wrong, you can't do it. So we have to be very cautious in how we do things, so that it works for everybody, both the investors, the company, and Kaptena.
Okay. But in terms of regulation, like the industry, because you are into a space which needs constant, because it's a new space, so of course you need to build your own frameworks and then get compliance around them from regulatory authorities. Is it the finance inspection which is the regulatory body, or is it Skatteverket? Of these two, which is the more like, what's the role of these two in kind of forming the compliance structure for your industry or the business that you're in?
That's a good point. The capital insurance is most the IRS is the one we have to consider most there, that it has to be market value. And for Kapnet is now the private companies. Most of the companies that we provide or work with are private, and the Finansinspektionen, the private companies are not regulated by Finansinspektionen, but they are still there. But we have to be compliant to the aktiebolagslagen.
Okay.
So you see, there are a bunch of different actors that we have to be compliant with. So if I started Kaptena 20 years ago, it would have been much easier than today, because now it's more regulated, more compliance to consider. We do it correctly. We do it a little bit slower, maybe slow, but correct. And that's it has to be compliant. Otherwise, it wouldn't work.
Very good. Like, amazing to hear about that complex compliance landscape as well. I think for any fintech startup or fintech investors, this would be a very interesting talk, like trying to understand like how this particular aspect of the market works.
Oh yeah, the fintech companies, they have a bunch of compliance to apply to as well.
Of
it
course.
Can't ease everything every day for them either.
Of course. I'm just trying to visualize some of the companies, like what type of companies are connected to Kaptena's network, like where people can go and invest? Do you have some sort of a criteria to follow, like this many sales numbers, revenues, profitability, the size of the company, let's say 50 employees or more? Like, do you have some internal benchmarks that you kind of look at when as to what companies can be on the platform, like minimum, maximum?
No, we don't have that
Okay.
because we have a lot of startups,
Uh-huh.
and many of them don't show any margins, positive margins today, but hopefully
Hmm.
tomorrow. Uh, so we don't have any of those criteria. If the investor believes in the company, he
Okay.
believes in the company and invests in their round. Hopefully, that investment will go 3, 4, maybe 5 times until exit. It could be
Hmm.
a listing or industrial exit. Uh, that's important. What
Hmm.
we check that are the people behind the company or the entrepreneurs, are they crooks or not? we
Yeah.
we don't like to work with crooks, but
Hmm. Hmm.
we don't disqualify any company for having. We don't say that your idea is bad. We don't want to work with you unless that idea is criminal. So we
Hmm.
don't
Hmm.
judge you for the business case.
Okay.
It's up to investors to decide that themselves, because these companies have investors,
Hmm.
early investors that believe in the company or
Hmm.
believe in the business, and we just support them in different ways. What we
Okay.
do, what we focus on is that it has to be proper. The company the entrepreneurs has to be proper or compliant.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then we focus on companies that have an ambition to grow. We say it, we focus on companies that have an ambition to grow with external capital. That means in our world that this company will do around today
Hmm.
or tomorrow or next one in 2 years or 3 years or maybe in 6 months, so that we will help the company grow within our ecosystem community from a small one to a larger one, and finally,
Hmm.
hopefully, an exit in maybe 3 or 4 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
So Kaptena wouldn't have been any great if we had 10,000 companies with one shareholder.
Okay.
So because we as Connect wants to do, we will connect investors with interesting investment possibilities.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I think this is very interesting because I'm also trying to, while you are discussing that, I'm writing a lot of notes. So I'm on sixth page now. So I think this is really, really interesting talk, and I'm trying to place like in context of how other services exist in the market. Like for example, you mentioned Connect. Connect is a historical organization I was talking about with our listeners here and later listeners. Like we have been existing for 25 years, a lot of experience in startup space and in funding space. Our domain is more angel investment space, like really early stage startups. But then we also have growth related projects where later scale companies can come and get competent support from our network. So that's our but we use a platform called, what I wanted to come to was we use a platform for deal integration called Dealum. Like Dealum is our digital platform where all startup cases come in, all or a fraction of them, whatever, however we decide. And then a part of our investor base also is on, because not everybody is digital, but a part of our invested base that is digital comes on Dealum. Now, Dealum's model is different from yours because they just provide the platform and then they want an outside actor like Connect to manage their platform, and they open it to other angel hubs and all. So from there, I understand that Captina is, so Dealum is passive. They are platform and then they are passive. They let a second party manage their portfolios. But in case of Captina, you guys are active because you're also doing active market valuation checks and you're trying to physically mobilize this network in terms of enabling future investment and all. So
Yes.
you're not passive, you are more active. I'm just trying to understand that.
Yeah, we're more active in that sense, and I don't. I think that your platform and our platform, they can work together. The companies
Okay.
sometimes they want to go broader than they want or need to go broader in their search for capital.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I don't see any what do you call that, competition. Is we are
Okay.
supporting each other in the way, in the same way. We want to help entrepreneurs to succeed.
Okay, okay, awesome, awesome. So this is really really great to know. Let's jump to a couple of other points I had in my mind. Let's see. How does what is the process like if we try to understand the investor side? How do they currently invest in unlisted stocks or unlisted companies? Like, what is the way for an investor to identify a company, create a relationship, and then decide that this is a company to go after, for example?
Before we had Kapnet, and I can say that Kapnet, we are launching Kapnet soon. We are evaluating the first companies that will be on the platform, the rounds. But from the beginning with Kaptena and this capital insurance, kapitalförsäkring, the customers or the shareholders come to Kaptena and they say, I own 10 shares in this unlisted company. I believe it's going to be a hit. I understand that if I pay small amount every year in tax, that sum of tax will be less than the capital gains tax in 4 years. Can you help me package these my shares into a kapitalförsäkring? So in that sense, we don't. In that case, we never give advice if that investment is good or bad, because the shareholder has already invested in that company. We just helping the shareholder to get into another tax regime. But with Kapnet, we will supply opportunities, investment opportunities for our members. But in that case, we don't give advice if the opportunity is a good investment or not, because that's up to a little bit like it's up to the investors or the members of Kapnet or the members of Connect investment network to decide for themselves if they want to invest in this company. They could say no, based on great company, great business, but the valuation is too high for me. So there are many different reasons if to invest or not to invest in a company. But we don't give advice on investments.
Very good, very good. I think this is a very interesting point because that level of responsibility could completely change the legal framework. And in
Probably.
Connect, we are also very careful. What we are trying to do is we are trying to make the match possible. By matching possible, we mean that on the entrepreneur side, we give them tools to prepare their pitch better, to talk to investors better. We create opportunities for them to meet investors digitally and physically. But that's where we stop. On the
Yeah.
investor side as well, we invite them to our events where they can meet entrepreneurs, they can support entrepreneurs. But the decision process is a black box between them and the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's the same. We have the same. We have the same view on that. We don't need. You don't want to be an advisor. You will. You will. We want to be a möjliggörare, provider of interesting investment opportunities, and
Mhm.
leave the decisions to the investors.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the technology, the tech side, because what you are building is also connected in the digital space. Is that how is the digital evolution of the product coming along? Is it technically complex, easy? Does it take a lot of resources to manage something like this? What are the challenges that you see, and How do you see this evolving going forward?
That's a good. You could say that unlisted securities
Mm.
are, by definition, more analog than
Okay.
listed securities. Because the listed security, they go through the ecosystem, the Avanza, Nordnet, SE-banken, Euroclear, everything is digitalized. We try to digitalize the part that we can, but we cannot digitalize everything in the private spectrum. And one thing that Kapclear helps with is to digitize the shareholder register, the old Aktieboken, to make the processes more efficient and streamlined. But at the end, we can never be as digitalized as the listed segment of the financial industry. At least not with today's regulations.
Okay.
But we try to do as much as we can to help because that makes the processes go much more slim and efficient.
Very good. Completely understood. Imagine there is somebody who wants to invest in unlisted companies going forward. What should be their starting point? If somebody wants to, so let's say we have a lot of investors in Connect who are investing in startups directly through Connect. But if they want to explore how it works in the Kaptena world or how things are in your universe, how should they go about the process? What would be the starting point to become structured investors in unlisted companies, like somebody who approaches this as a portfolio building approach? What should be some steps they need to take?
Or then risk, what do you call it? Risk spreading. What is that in English?
Risk.
Diversification. Risk
Yeah,
diversification.
yeah.
I spent 20 years helping mutual fund investors, and the mutual fund is per se a good diversification. And when it comes to single stocks listed, you need a portfolio of different stocks to get this risk diversification. And when it comes to unlisted shares, it's equally important. Don't put all eggs in one basket. And you have to consider your total portfolio. You have mutual funds in one part, maybe. You have single stocks, or a portfolio of listed stocks. You have a portfolio of unlisted securities or stocks. And the total sum of that has to be well diversified. Otherwise, I believe that your risk exposure is not adequate. And you have to be able, when you invest in private equity, you have to consider that it's a lack of liquidity in the mutual fund market or in the listed segment. There is a possibility to get rid of your shares or your mutual funds. In the private equity, it is not as easy. That is something that we're looking at to help investors and companies provide them with liquidity, but it's also not. There are different challenges in that spectrum as well. But that is something that Kaptena looks at. But first, we want to start out with this Kapnet, helping companies raise capital, give nice, interesting opportunities for investors. And we have about 4,000 customers that have been with us since 15 and going forward, that are interested in private equity investments.
Very interesting. I think this is really interesting, this entire space. And I think your point on risk diversification is also more strategic. So like instead of focusing on a particular asset class and diversifying the risk, as an investor, it's important that you think beyond the asset classes and think, okay, so you have some listed investments, some private equity investments, and some and that's where you talked and mutual funds, for example, and try to then balance the entire portfolio, because that's where liquidity plays the because other asset classes may be more liquid because you can just go out on a public limited stock and liquidate that faster. But really interesting points over here. What so I have two last parting points. I know we are close to the closing note on the question, but you said in the earlier part of the talk something very interesting on valuation. So if you could give us some insight into like what kind of process you follow to keep your valuations of the companies updated.
Well, we use a bunch of different valuation techniques or methods.
Okay.
Most of the times, we start out in a round as a nyemission, where there has been investors paying to invest in this company, and in that regard, we know that we have a market value somewhere, maybe a year ago. What has happened since then, and how has this company developed since then, and what has happened with a peer group of other similar companies? Could be private companies, could be listed companies in the same spec. So and then of course it's important we have it's a regular, many times is a DCF, discounted cash flow analysis method, and we have these peer group methods as well. And maybe most important is that all valuation are some kind of future guessing. If there is, or when there is, transactions between oberoende parter, that valuation is more market value than a valuation. So we try to keep track of secondaries in these shares as well, and combine the whole valuation process to get the correct market value at the correct time. So it's a pretty broad spectrum of information and valuation processes that we take it very seriously. So sometimes we also act some kind of police for our customers, saying, no, we believe it's 10 kroner per share. Oh, I want a lower price value. No, we can't do that, because if we do that, the IRS will come down on us, and that will be that will hurt Kaptena, that will hurt the customer, and Kaptena as a whole. So it's very important that we super focused on the valuation.
I think this is really important. I think the methods you mentioned and the process you mentioned sounds really good. I think one of the main things also is, as the time goes by, the longer you are into it, the more you will have industry norms developing as well. So you could have normatives like, this is a typical retail company, this is a typical e-commerce companies, and we have, let's say, 500 of these in our portfolio now. This was the progression. So the portfolio itself will would start providing some valuation benchmarks internally as the portfolio grows.
Yes,
so I think
when we have the possibilities, we of course we use the peer groups of our own, but we also take on what does the prognosis that the company have give out. That those prognoses are very important for the valuation until the prognosis changes, because that happens, of course.
True.
And then check out when the annual report comes. The company believed they would have this, but the actuals came out higher or lower.
Yeah,
that is also very important proof of concept, proof of figures that we also put in the total valuation process, of course.
Exactly, exactly. So really interesting, which brings me to the last question for today. And before that, we have something here from Mats, who is saying that, are you looking into blockchain solution for digitalizing assets such as shares?
Can I look at these chats as well, I think? Yeah,
Yes,
okay. Here we go. I
yeah.
have found them. We see
So
where we
yeah,
start.
we have a question coming from Mats. Are you looking into blockchain solution for digitalizing of assets such as shares?
We are the Kapclear is built on the legislation how a company's share book should be organized, and it works. If we believe we haven't looked into this because what we do it more like Euroclear is doing, how they handle listed shares. We do almost the same.
Okay.
So that's how we built Kapclear. So it could be in the future, maybe we could look at
Yeah.
that, but today we want it to be as Euroclear and the aktiebolagslagen says.
Okay. Okay. Great. I hope, Mats, you got your answer. So maybe they look into this technology going forward. Jesper, anything's on the horizon going forward? So what's the big vision going forward for the next 5, 7, 10 years? What's on your mind as
Oh,
the
yeah.
founder and CEO? Yeah.
When I started Kaptena 10 years ago,
Hmm.
I said that I want Kaptena to become Avanza or Nordnet, which are the biggest platforms for listed or saving platforms. I wanted Kaptena to become Avanza Nordnet for unlisted securities for that segment. And now when we added on Kapclear, Kapnet, our vision is that Kaptena will become a mix between Avanza or Nordnet, a Euroclear, and an emissionsinstitut. And I don't know the English word for that.
Okay.
That emissionsinstitut helps companies with their nyemissioner in an administration way. So put everything into our ecosystem, partnering with others, for example, connect and make it happen in a big ecosystem like the financial system is today for listed securities.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Jesper, thank you so much for the openness, for the energy, and for the rich experience you brought to today's discussion. We're very thankful to you and to Kaptina for joining us today. And a big thanks to the community who joined us today and is part of Connect in what we are doing. Thank you so much, Jesper.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for listening.